The 1960s was arguably the most notable decade for the 20th century for aerospace and space exploration. The Cold War kept American ingenuity on edge, and by the time the decade was over, the United States had put the first man on the moon. At the time, Seattle, positioned at the intersection of a channel primarily connected to the Pacific Ocean and the forests of the North, had an economy based on mostly shipping and logging, with one exception. The Boeing Airplane Company, who started in the city nearly 50 years prior, had come off one of the most successful decades for a company ever. They had launched the Boeing 707 in 1958, with the 727 in the pipeline. They had also secured millions worth of federal contracts to produce bombers and other aircraft for the U.S. military, U.S. missile programs, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. With the Cold War intensifying and the space race hitting full steam, it was only natural that the city, who was home to one of the nation's most notable and important companies at the time, be selected to host the 1962 rendition of the World's Fair, called the Century 21 Exposition. City leaders initially wanted to host the fair as a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the 1909 Alaska-Yukon-Pacific Exposition, but it soon became clear that date was too ambitious. With the summer of 1962 secured for the Century 21 Exposition, officials planned to use the opportunity to embark on several urban development projects, both for practical use for the World's Fair, but also to project Seattle as a forward-looking city on the cutting edge, rather than just a logging town. Although multiple sites in Seattle were considered, the city ultimately chose Seattle Center, a plot of land donated half a century earlier, located northwest of downtown. Previous proposals for the site had suggested using it for a civic center, and it was already home to several public facilities. After the site was selected, construction began for many of the structures built in preparation for the World's Fair, including smaller buildings and pavilions, a monorail system linking the site to downtown, an observation tower, and a remarkable 110,000 square foot pavilion spanning 4 city blocks, designed without a single interior beam or column. The building, initially called Washington State Pavilion and later Washington State Coliseum, could host a variety of events and exhibits given its extraordinary size and features, or lack thereof. Specifically, the Coliseum featured future airplanes and spacecraft from Boeing, wilderness and hydropower exhibits, event space, and the World of Tomorrow exhibit, showcasing futuristic technology, industry, and scientific progress. In total, the fair ran for 6 months. 10 million visitors toured the Washington State Coliseum and other attractions, and Seattle was one of the few hosts at the time that was able to make the event profitable, partially in thanks to the film It Happened at the World's Fair, starring Elvis Presley, which was filmed during the fair's run and released the following year. When city leaders, namely Seattle Mayor Alan Pomeroy, were pushing for the World's Fair, they convinced the Seattle City Council to approve $8.5 million in bonds to build the various structures, with the state legislature matching that amount. $7 million alone was set aside specifically for the Washington State Coliseum. It would be designed by prominent Washington State architect Paul Theory, known as the father of Northwest modernism. His final design was nonetheless in the modernist style, featuring a striking, hyperbolic paraboloid roof that required no interior support. Instead, massive exterior columns held tensioned cables that supported the roof, creating a bold and innovative architectural statement. After the fair was over, the city embarked on a $2.9 million renovation project to convert the large enclosed space into a usable sports arena, including bleachers, concourses, concessions, locker rooms, and other requisite facilities. When the renovation was complete, the Seattle University men's basketball team became the arena's first tenant, and the following year it was renamed the Seattle Center Coliseum to match the venue's location. A minor hockey league team would also be added as professional sports was on the rise across the country.